We are back with day 4 of week 2 of the Empathy Dojo. I hope you are enjoying the program so far and that you're also getting the sense of how we are gradually building up from some self-care, of generating this sense of presence, of resource, of wellness within. And then we're starting to work into some ideas that are going to be a little more obviously interpersonal. And by the beginning of next week, we'll be getting into some of the interpersonal, and then those will come into our next meeting where we'll actually get to try these out on each other in sort of dyad practice work. So today we have yet another of these building blocks of our Empathy Dojo practice, and specifically what I've introduced as the Rev C protocol. To review, that was rapport, emotions, all are valid, values, you're a source of them, and choosing responsibly. So we did rapport, the basis of everything, every other aspect of your crucial conversations or casual conversations. If you can start with a rapport, everything's going to go better. And we talked about this as the compassionate connected orientation. That was all last week, as well as this week we started talking about the nonviolent communication technique of observing without evaluating as one of the first tools for creating rapport. Then we talked about emotions, energy in motion, and we played with not only our slogan empathy first, but also our slogan that presence heals. So you can start to see the trajectory here. We've been generating a lot of presence, and now we are actually allowing that presence to begin to do its healing function. So we talked about emotions, and we're getting these building blocks going on. There are no unhealthy emotions. Well, today we're going to talk about needs and values. And one slogan we could start with is that there are no unhealthy needs. There are no unhealthy needs. So let's see if I can do this little screen share for you. Fundamental Human Needs from Manfred Max Neef. And you can see things like subsistence, leisure, participation, identity, affection, creation, understanding, protection. Wow, did I get all of them? Creation, did I get creation? I don't know. Participation, hey, that's a fun one. So this is where Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, when he was developing nonviolent communication, you can read in his book, Nonviolent Communication of Language of Life, based a lot of their work on fundamental human needs from the work of Manfred Max Neef. And it's this idea that we all have these various areas that we need to survive or to thrive. We don't only need what might be called the subsistence needs, such as food and shelter. Maybe shelter goes into protection a little bit. But we also, humans have a need for freedom in order to be able to survive. We also have identity needs. We also need affection. We need understanding. All of these are innate, universal human needs. Now, don't worry about memorizing these, because I have a trick for this that I'll give you next week when we get a little more detailed. We're just slowly just putting in these building blocks, and my hope is that we can start to generate some somatic understandings of these things, rather than what can sometimes happen where we get it in a conceptual way, but we're not really building it into our body. So the first thing I wanted to share with you about these universal human needs, there aren't unhealthy needs either. There aren't unhealthy needs. So just like with the emotions, we said there aren't unhealthy emotions at the end. I said there can be unhealthy strategies for expressing those emotions, right? You know, we might get angry and then yell or act violently. Well, that's an unhealthy and unhappy strategy for expressing anger, but the anger itself is actually, it's this holy living energy. Aside from that, even back to our observations without evaluations, if anger is arising, that is what is. You have to start there. It's no good to kind of go into a fantasy land about what could be. Oh, well, I could be. No, if that's what you are, that's what we must deal with. Well, similarly, there are no unhealthy needs. So for example, we all need food. We all need food. Some of us also need love. No, all of us need love. Some of us, like I was trained as a youth, use food as a replacement if we're not getting enough love, we'll put in more food to make up for the lack of love. Now, that can be an unhealthy strategy for meeting that need because, well, it can cause unhealthy states in my body. You can get away with that for a little while, but uh, one of the trickiest things in here, not to get too complicated, but sometimes when we've shamed our need for love, we'll think of another strategy to fulfill it, right? We'll go, okay, well, I'm not allowed to want love, or everyone's going to hurt me, so don't do that. And then we'll fill it up with food. What's another one? Humans actually, according to Dr. Rosenberg's work, and I truly believe this, have a need for sexual expression, or in my understanding, it's a type of bliss. So we can experience this through yoga. We can experience this in a lot of different ways. But in that terminology, it's a need for sexual expression. Well, if you have a need for love, but that's not allowed, and you try to fill that up with sexual expression, that might be an unhealthy way of trying to get that need met. Right. So there's all of these tricks that we can do. Similarly, sexual expression is one that we might have. We might get our needs for sexual expression met, have strategies that meet them that are unhealthy for us, right? That are irresponsible, that don't live up to our values. So there can be unhealthy ways of meeting our needs for survival, for space, for autonomy. I personally have a big need for autonomy and agency, and at times in my life, I've had the strategy of just kind of pushing people away to make sure that my needs for autonomy were met. So that strategy was unhealthy. It made me unhappy. It made the people around me unhappy. But the need for autonomy, totally valid, totally healthy. Need for autonomy, totally a healthy need. So this is the first principle I want to share with you. And as we're going through our process of presence, of looking into ourselves, I just want you to have the cognitive filter today of looking as your various needs come up. Do we tend to shame some of them, or do we take the strategies and we shame ourselves for certain needs? And you know by now, I'm sure, that those leak out through the sides, right? We tell ourselves, oh, you don't need emotional connection, and that's not true. That's just bull. We're just trying to repress a part of ourselves, and then of course that comes out. We try to meet that through sex. We try to meet that through food. We try to meet that through power. We try to meet that through material possessions. So we want to unbind our delusion that we have that there are such a thing as unhealthy needs, and learn actually that there are just unhealthy strategies of meeting those needs. So take some contemplation, like what are some of the things that you need? We need air, we need water. Those are the two that will perish most quickly without. We need food, but then we also need contact. Some of us need more physical contact than others. Like I said, we need sexual expression. We need to participate. All of these things are innate human needs. This then goes into your interpersonal, and another cognitive filter you can have is when we notice, some of us may still do this, it's easy to do, or we may notice others doing this. When someone expresses a need, then we'll judge and shut down, oh, you don't really need that. Instead of asking for a different strategy, making a request that someone use a different strategy, asking if we might help them meet their need in a way that also works for us. Instead of that, we might shut down their need. This is, in life, this is like slut shaming is a great example. Or for those who want a lot of space and autonomy, we might shame that and say they're closed to intimacy. And it's because we don't have a language that allows us to express our own discomfort or our own longings, our own needs without shaming theirs. So this second aspect is that if we don't know that all these needs are valid, we don't know that we can actually ask for ours. And it contributes to this shaming, blaming, criticizing, problematic style of pseudo connection that we have, instead of this compassionate, connected orientation that we're going for. Okay, the last thing I want to share with you for our Rev C protocol is you'll notice I'm using this word needs, which they use in nonviolent communication, but in Rev, it's a letter V. There's no N in the Rev C protocol. Yes, I just had to check. But it's values. And the reason I like to share this is because sometimes in the practice of nonviolent communication, we may get into a habit of making another person responsible for our happiness and then using the language of observations, feelings, and needs. We'll use that in a way of trying to get them to accept responsibility for our happiness. So we may share, oh, I needed sexual expression, and it's like, well, they didn't want to participate that way. They needed autonomy, or they needed food or something like that. I needed intimacy. Well, I needed space. But sometimes we'll use this. This is just something that's important to me lately, is we'll sometimes use or abuse this model of nonviolent communication, that instead of sharing our needs as a way of sharing what's alive in us to create more rapport, we share our needs kind of like a weapon as a way to get the other person to do what we want. Right? I needed this, and there's this assumption that, okay, you were supposed to give me that. And the minute we get into the supposed to, we know that we are out of that compassionate and connected orientation, and we've come in to this closed or critical orientation. Now, the good news is you're still allowed to ask for all kinds of stuff. Encouraged, not just allowed, encouraged. It's important to ask for all kinds of stuff in the compassionate, connected orientation. But the idea is that we want the other person to know who we are, and we want them to choose to participate in our expression of values. So rather than, you're responsible for my happiness, I needed food and you didn't give it to me, and that's why I'm so upset, we can actually share with them, wow, I was really hungry, so they know where we're coming from. And a lot of the time, if the person actually loves us, they do want to meet our needs. They do want to participate in creating our happiness. But anytime we make them responsible for our happiness, we break rapport, we fracture, because what we often do is we put belongingness at stake. We put that sense of unity at stake. You didn't meet my needs, therefore I might withdraw this belongingness from the situation. And so what we want to try to do is to learn that presencing, that resource, and actually the fundamental human need that no one else can give you, is for peace, is for happiness. We have to think about it. This is the yogic version, and we might as well throw in some important yogic teachings. If others were responsible for your happiness, then they can also take it away. Well, do we want a happiness like that? So when we're doing the wise friend, if you don't have a wise friend like that, take heart in that the idea is to get you into those resources in yourself. That's the wise friend we actually want to cultivate, is this compassionate, loving, and peaceful aspect of ourselves. When that's online, when we're not making others responsible for our peace, I can't be at peace unless you. When we are a wellspring of peace, then we get to offer the chance to participate. I'm a wellspring of peace. I would love it if you met my needs for food. I would love it if you met my needs for autonomy and left me the hell alone. I would love it if you met my needs for sexual expression and, came home with me tonight. We can express all of these things. And then what an amazing opportunity to participate and create and expand joy together, rather than, well, I got this need for sexual expression and you were responsible for it. We're not facilitating what's tomorrow's lesson all about, which is choice, the power of these choices that come out from us, that we become a generator in this compassionate orientation, rather than just kind of like vying for, did we provide one another enough, or else now we're upset. So main principles, big yogi rant, but main principles: needs. There are no unhealthy needs. There are no unhealthy needs. And we want to look at, do we shame some needs? Do we uphold some others as more important? There are no unhealthy needs, but there are unhealthy strategies. And we want to just go through and start to pull out, what am I needing throughout the day? Like, what needs are coming up for you? And then if you want to go a little deeper into the values, like sometimes we'll have core values, like if autonomy is one of mine, that these are things that it's not others' responsibility to give to us, but there's something it's our responsibility to express, and coming from this resource and peace within, the only actual stable and consistent source of that we're going to find, we can invite others to participate in the expression of those values. And this is a really joyful way to interact. So, putting in the building blocks, we've gotten up to the V. We've got one more in our Rev C protocol, and their practice is going to tie them all together. So I'll see you for that tomorrow.